Things just got very bad for our friends in the bloodline. Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, and Jimmy Uso. Can they coexist? That was the big question we had when they started this saga up again several weeks ago. We're like, hey, we're back, the bloodline's back, all that fun stuff. But now we saw what happened at Crown Jewel on Saturday in Perth, Australia. And all questions have been answered seemingly as to where these three men go from here. Because it seems to be that these three are headed down separate paths until maybe we get to Survivor Series. But we'll get to that in just a second because I think it's becoming very clear how perhaps WWE is going to play this out until later next month at Survivor Series in San Diego. But for now, we know. You guys have watched the videos we've done in recent weeks, kind of getting back into this bloodline stuff and how WWE has been teasing us and throwing out all these hints about what may come next. The most recent development we had was Jey Uso losing on Raw. He was kind of pissed. He had to team up with Jimmy again because we know Jey's his own man now. He's got his own goals and aspirations. He's proven he can do it on his own. He's been the World Heavyweight Champion. And now that he's tasted some of that success, he wants to get it back, right? That's been Jey's story throughout this whole thing. And it's intertwined with Roman Reigns because Roman has wanted Jey to come out and smash them all. He's wanted Jey to take care of his business, be the man, right? Be someone that could be the next tribal chief and all those things. However, Roman also made it very clear to Jimmy Uso that he hears everything and he wants to know why Jimmy's pissed that Jey's following his advice, but he also told the both of them to stay out of his business, right? But they couldn't help themselves here because, as we know, this was a big match for Roman Reigns. Australian street fight against Bronson Reed in his home country, Australia. He's back. And so, big Bronson Reed comes out with something to prove because Reigns has already gotten the better of him in recent months. The tag team match at SummerSlam, Roman and Jey won that one. Roman won the singles match at Clash in Paris. You're thinking, are you going to beat Bronson Reed for a third time here? A lot of people thought he was. It didn't happen. Why? Because of Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso. They cost Roman Reigns and allowed Bronson Reed to be one of the few people that have pinned Roman Reigns in years here, as Michael Cole said on commentary. And so what did that do? That set off a chain of events that may indeed break the bloodline for good. And we'll see how long it lasts. But we know that's how this whole thing is played out, right? You had Reigns, in a position where he had to save Jey at one point down the stretch of this match, and then it came down to Jey spearing Roman Reigns through the table in the corner, and that allowed Bronson Reed to ultimately get the win, and it sets up more of this bloodline drama, everything moving forward. And then it was really the stuff that happened after the match that I think became the central focus here on where WWE is headed next. This visual right here did not happen after the match. This is the one they were setting up, right? It was the whole idea that Reigns and Jey were on the same page. They were the guys that were connected together because they had the common sort of thing. Roman Reigns brought it up to Jimmy. Hey, Jey became much more like me than you after he won the World Championship because, Jimmy, you don't know what that's like, right? And then, of course, Jimmy has looked at this whole thing and thought, this isn't good for me. This isn't good for Jey. It's not good for me, and it's not good for Roman. Well, if Jimmy thought that before, watching this particular visual right here play out, I got some bad news for Jimmy because it's about to potentially get worse for how this whole thing could play out. Because once again, it was Jimmy at Crown Jewel who was trying to be the guy that wasn't necessarily trying to be the person who caused the rift between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. He's trying to bring them together because Jimmy himself said, right? He's like, hey, I'll be there. He is. Jimmy, through thick and thin, he's like, somehow he'll be back into this bloodline thing somehow, some way, right? He made that comeback one time when we never thought he was going to be back in the bloodline. Came back, didn't really go necessarily anywhere, but he was back in it because it's blood. It's all about the family. However, now you've got Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. Nothing like this picture right here. You've got these guys in a situation where you have Roman Reigns come out, and what does he say after the match? He gets pissed off because he's thinking, hey, I told you guys. I told you, right? I told you not to get involved. And Roman Reigns says the line, the whole world thinks I can't do shit on my own. And that's pissing off Roman Reigns because he's heard that before too, right? This isn't just necessarily focused in on this particular situation at Crown Jewel or even this year. He's heard it throughout this entire run. All the interference from Solo and Jey and Jimmy and everyone who's been involved. Heyman. Roman's heard it throughout the entire time as the tribal chief, that he can't do this by himself. And so he's got to have the Usos come out here to try to help him, and ultimately it costs him, right? And then Reigns is sitting in the ring telling him, this isn't the old times, and it only works one way. What do we think he means by that? It only works one way. We know what that means, right? We talk about a power struggle and someone who has been at the very top. Yes, Jey has gotten to the top as well, but he's not been in the Roman Reigns role. And so when Reigns says it only works one way, that means one thing, that he is the ultimate tribal chief. And if you noticed, when Reigns came out of the ring, WWE made to capture the visual of him picking up the Ulafala because, again, it's all about the power. He is the person who is wearing that. It's not Jey, it's not Jimmy. Roman Reigns is the tribal chief. He's the original tribal chief. He's the OTC1, whatever moniker they want to use, right? That's Roman Reigns. And so now you kind of have the setup where Reigns is not in control of them. He's not in control of Jey and Jimmy right now. And so it's all we've said. And look, Jey pointed out, he even said the line here. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I have it right. Like, Jay's like, hey, Roman's going to leave like he always does. And Reigns is always going to do him. And we've said that. You think about all the times we've kind of brought up, Roman is going to be Roman. He has always been the same person. And you want to talk about success changing someone. When Roman made that turn to become the tribal chief, that changed Roman Reigns forever. You're never going to get the old big dog back, right? You're never going to get the Roman Reigns back that's going out and shaking hands and all this other stuff. That's not Roman. He's the tribal chief. And Jey doesn't know what that's like. Jimmy doesn't know what that's like. And so, and you kind of see how they position it here, where, again, him saying it only works one way and that this isn't the old times. If they're going to get back to the old times, it's got to work one particular way. And that's Roman being at the top. Can't be anyone else making the call except for Roman Reigns, right? And so I just thought it was such an interesting dynamic, the way they kind of set this up. And again, we know where this is headed. And look, this visual right here, we know exactly where this is headed when you go to this one, where it's Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and CM Punk. There is a very good chance that all four of these men, just as right here at Survivor Series last year, could also be in the same ring at War Games and Survivor Series this year on the same team again. What's that dynamic going to be like this time around? We know what it took last year to get everybody back on the same page. But Roman made it clear at Crown Jewel, he didn't want to see the Usos till Christmas. I thought it was a great line. It's like, hey, don't talk to me until we get to the family Christmas here, all right? Then we'll air our grievances there. But he wants no part of Jey and Jimmy until they get to Christmas. Well, Survivor Series before Christmas, and these guys are going to have to somehow get on the same page before them. Or maybe they don't. Maybe somehow they're forced into this match where they don't have a choice, right? Because you're going up against the Vision in some iteration. I saw the reports out there this week about how the projected teams right now could be Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Jey Uso, Jacob Fatu, and either Jimmy Uso or LA Knight. The other team that was reported, Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Brock Lesnar, and Austin Theory, which whether that's how this plays out, I have no idea, but that was the report out there. You guys probably saw the rumors. So let's see if we get there. But any way you look at it, this may, yes, will still be about Roman and Punk. Can they coexist? But it's going to be a lot more about the other three if Jimmy is involved in the match. We know Jay's going to be there. We know Roman's going to be there. Will they put Jimmy in the match? We'll find out. Maybe they do something that takes Jimmy out of the match before we get there. And maybe that brings Roman and Jey back together. You see how things could be turning here in terms of what's next for where they go after this. And we know, I mean, Jey just simply walked out on Jimmy, right? Jay's pissed at Jimmy. Jay's pissed at Roman. All three of them are pissed at each other. And again, Jimmy's kind of the man that's stuck in the middle. I'm curious to see out of this whole thing, we've seen the significant sort of development in terms of the story and the character with Roman and Jey throughout this entire Bloodline cycle. We've not seen it to the same extent with Jimmy. Now listen, do I think Jimmy's ever going to be the WWE champion or the world champion? Probably not. But I think this is at least a scenario now where you've got Reigns leaving, as Jey said. It's what he's going to do what he always does. He's going to leave. And then you've got Jey. Where's he going to go from here, right? Is he going to step up when it seems like he is completely out of the world title picture for now, because we're probably going to get right back to Rollins and Punk at some point soon, as we've talked about in previous videos. LA Knight's going to feel like he has a claim for that as well. And we talked about it. Jey got pinned on Raw this past week. Why should he have a claim for the title? So all these things, I think you look at now and feel like it's kind of setting up to where Jimmy is kind of in a very fascinating spot. Because I don't know if Jimmy's the one that's going to bring Roman and Jey back together. And they're going to have to do it differently than they did last year, you know? And I know some people may say, well, they're just literally in the same spot they were in last year. It's a little bit different now because of Jey and where Jey has been since last Survivor Series. Jey, yes, was on his own before that last year, but what he's achieved since then, winning the Royal Rumble, being the world champion, that completely trumps anything else that he did before that. He was an Intercontinental Champion level type guy before Survivor Series last year. Now, you've got even more of that sort of hardness to his character, right? To where he's like, no, this is exactly what I want. I'm not going to give this up to come back into the fold and somehow, get these guys back on the same page or something. So I'm really curious to see how WWE is going to bring them back together because they've torn them apart here. And now, how do you bring them back together? Because this was, again, for Roman Reigns, you think of it from his psyche, as we said, someone who thinks that he knows he can do it on his own, but the whole world thinks he can't. And he just got pinned for only the second time, and again, in a long time for Roman Reigns. That's not going to sit well. But like I said, it's now a trend. Jey got pinned on Raw on Monday. Roman just got pinned, right? Jimmy's taking some pins. We know that. So this isn't the Bloodline at their height, where they're always finding a way to walk out with the ones in the air. No, it's not happening because they're all losing right now. And so how do you get it back? I think that's where we're headed, is to figure out exactly how we bring all these guys back together. And I don't think Roman's going to get his wish of only seeing the Usos at Christmas. I think he's got to see them before then. But I think we are looking at a situation now coming out of this where there's so much drama that's going to be involved. And when we see Roman next, not sure. When we see Jey next, I mean, you're assuming he's going to show up on Raw, and maybe they do something after that. But I think it's going to lead to an interesting direction for Jey and Jimmy leading up to Survivor Series. So you guys let me know your predictions. Here we go again. What's next now as we look at these kind of decisions and choices that have been made? We said some of these guys had to make some big choices. Choices have been made. They've walked out on each other after Jey inadvertently cost Roman the match here. What's going to happen next? Let me know your predictions. Always appreciate your feedback. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button as well. And what's next for what is a not-so-great chapter, perhaps, in the future of the Bloodline?